Hey everyone, welcome to another Blu-ray review video. In this video, we're taking a look at the fifth wave of Viavision's Imprint collection of premium Blu-rays. You guys know what these are all about by now, so let's cut straight into it. Alright, so this is another 6-film wave here from Viavision's Imprint label. We've got a bunch of films from the 1950s through to the 1990s. We're going to take a look at them by spine number. Of course, this wave right here takes us up to number 34. I can't believe we've had that many of them so far. In fact, I think this month marks a year since they've been doing these. So we've had a year's worth of Imprint so far, which is absolutely crazy. I remember when they first announced these. First up, we'll take a look at Breakdown. This is a film made in 1997 in the vein of a 1970s exploitation road film. You know, those films where the guy's out on the road and he ends up having to face murderers and all this kind of crazy explosive action and that kind of stuff. I don't think I'd ever really heard about this one, but because it's Kurt Russell, I mean, I had to check it out. I have to check out all the imprints, but this is one that I was particularly interested in taking a look at. This guy is out on the road with his wife, the car breaks down, and this truck driver comes by and offers him help. At first, he doesn't want the help, but the guy says, look, I will take, because he says, you know, I want to stay with the car. The guy says, I'll take your wife to the nearest truck stop. We'll call in like a repair vehicle and get the car back up and running. He says, okay. So the wife goes up with the truck driver, and after a few hours have passed, the wife hasn't come back. So he eventually gets the car going by himself, and when he goes after the wife, she's nowhere to be found. And it ends up with like this cat and mouse chase between this guy who's a truck driver, and it turns out he's involved in like this big gang and all this stuff. Just trying to find his wife leads to like some crazy chase sequences and crazy violence and mobs and all this kind of stuff. It's like just a really great exploitation thriller film, and I really loved it. I didn't really have any issues with the transfer of this one. Maybe there were a few instances where there was maybe a little bit of print damage or something, but because the film is reasonably modern, there wasn't really a lot of that. So the transfer on this one really is top-notch. There's a bunch of great special features on here. All of them were recorded in 2020 and are new and exclusive for this release. There's an audio commentary by film critic Peter Tonguet. There is an in-depth interview with the writer-director Jonathan Mostow, an interview with stunt coordinator M. James Arnett, an interview with the musician Eric Colvin on working with composer Basil Polyduris. As we've come to expect from Imprint, all of these interviews are really first class and fantastic. There is a small featurette called They Think I'm a Dummy, which features Jack Noseworthy speaking on Breakdown, and a visual essay by Ian Mantgani called Life is a Jeep, Breakdown and the Psychology of the Road. There's also an interview with film critic Tim Roby on there as well, and a theatrical trailer. Some of these Imprint releases actually don't come that stacked with special features, particularly some of the newer ones, but this one I found to actually be one of the most stacked releases as far as special features goes. They're all absolutely terrific, particularly for a film like this where you wouldn't normally get too many in-depth featurettes. I think this is a really terrific offering, and perhaps one of the best releases that Imprint has put out so far. Next up at number 30 is The Bridges at Toko-Ri. This is a war film made in 1954. It stars William Holden as Harry Brubaker, a US naval lieutenant and World War II pilot who gets called back into service during the North Korean War, and he's sent out on this essentially suicide mission to blow up the bridges at Toko-Ri. Now, this is a guy who is world-worn, he's weary, he's been through the war before, he doesn't want to go back into conflict, so he ends up having like this internal crisis with himself where he realizes this is not what I want to be doing, this is not the right thing to do, but he knows he owes it to his country to go out and do it again. It's a really fantastic character study, but I feel like it was a movie that didn't really work as well as I'd hoped. I really love all of these old war films, but I feel like this one was maybe I'm not too sure what my main issue with it was. I just think it was maybe a little bit tedious and it didn't really touch on its themes as well as I think it could have. Also, Grace Kelly is in here for about 10 minutes. She was like one of the main reasons I was really excited to check this movie out, and she's in it very little, which was very disappointing. Look, it is a good movie. I just felt like it didn't really stand the test of time, as well as other classics from the era like A Bridge Too Far or Bridge on the River Kwai, or Guns of the Navarone, or Tora Tora Tora, The Longest Day, those kind of movies. I feel like it's kind of in a lower echelon of all those kinds of things. As far as special features go, there's not a huge offering on this one. There is an audio commentary by film historian Alan K. Rode, which was recorded in 2020, and is actually quite in-depth and gives a great overview of the production of the film. There's also a visual essay on here on the career of actress Grace Kelly by critic Kat Ellinger, which was created last year as well. A very high-quality little documentary. It really dives into Grace Kelly's life, and I thought it was really fascinating, particularly as someone who is a fan of Grace Kelly. And this little documentary is almost worth the price of admission for this set alone, because if you are a fan of Grace Kelly, you're really, really gonna love it. There's also a theatrical trailer for the film on there as well. Unfortunately, the transfer on this one isn't as fantastic as I'd hoped it would be either. There's quite a bit of print damage prevalent on here, and the grain management isn't really that great. It looks like there's been a little bit of DNR in it in some segments, but then in other segments, grain is really, really heavy that it almost looks more like digital grain, digital noise, than something that is organic to the source. It did look quite nice. It looks fairly comparable to other movies of the time on Blu-ray, but then again, with a premium line like this, you do kind of expect something that is a little bit more crisp and clear. It's not often that Imprint offers a transfer that I don't think is that great. Unfortunately, Bridges at Toko-Ri is one that didn't look that fantastic. Next up at number 31 is The Bad News Bears. This is a sports comedy made in 1976. It stars Walter Matthau and Tatum O'Neal. I loved this movie. This was so damn good. I'm a fan of Walter Matthau. I think his films are fantastic. I love his really dry, droll kind of humor. He plays this beer-swilling, cigarette-chomping, foul-mouthed guy who was hired to coach a Little League baseball team, and as you can imagine, all kinds of hijinks ensue. He calls the kids little bastards, and he treats them very poorly. But the kids give it right back to them as well. They're all hellraisers, and it's just such an just a blast. It's such a fun movie. There's a lot of stuff in here that's very dated. There's a lot of stuff that wouldn't be acceptable now, and probably, it definitely wasn't acceptable then. But other than that, again, you got to look at these films through the lens of the time period that they were made and appreciate them for the time period that they did come out. And past all that stuff, I really, really love this movie. Again, special features wise, the offering here is very, very slim. There's an audio commentary by film historian Scott Harrison. I listened to a little bit of this, and he does offer a very nice insight into the film itself. There's also a theatrical trailer here as well. Transfer-wise, this is another one that wasn't really fantastic. It's very murky, it's very washed out, there's a lot of print damage on here, it's not incredibly crisp or incredibly sharp, but I didn't let that deter my enjoyment of the film itself. I should say that Viavision are not in charge of the remasters of these films. They just receive them as they're given to them from the studios. Paramount is releasing this one over in the States on Blu-ray for the very first time over there as well, so I assume that the master that Imprint have used is exactly the same as the master that Paramount have used on their brand new release of this, and that's totally fine. Next up at number 32 is The Apostle from 1997. It stars Robert Duvall as a preacher man who has devoted his life to preaching the words of God and Jesus and reading the Bible, but he is a very volatile man. He sins a lot, and he ends up accidentally murdering someone. Basically, he killed someone and goes on the run to a kind of a deserted country town where he wants to start his life afresh with the Lord on his side, and he opens his own church and gets, opens his own congregation and all that kind of stuff. I'm usually not huge on faith-based films, but I do love films about humans and human stories, and that is what this movie is at its core. It's like a character study of a man who has devoted himself to preaching the words of the Lord, but is also a sinner, and it's his kind of internal struggle to kind of cope between dealing with himself while being a vestibule for the words of the Bible. And he's a really terrible person. He's a really horrible guy, and he's someone that you really can't find any kind of redeeming values in. You never really feel any kind of sympathy for him or anything, and you do really hope that his chance at a new life kind of fails in a way, because there's no redeeming quality in this guy who treats women disrespectfully and kills people and whatever else. This guy has no redeeming qualities. I found it quite a fascinating movie though, regardless of that. It is very long. It's a little bit over 2 hours, and I didn't think it was fantastic, but it was gripping enough to me to keep my attention. It's directed by Robert Duvall as well. As far as special features go, there's quite a lot on here. There's an audio commentary by director, writer, producer, and star Robert Duvall, which I believe is an archive feature that probably appeared on a previous DVD. It's actually very interesting to listen to this because he was, you know, so involved in the film on all different levels, and as a creative, it's really interesting to hear him speak about the film. There's a bunch of interviews and essays on here that were created in 2020, so they are new and exclusive to the set. There's an interview with actor John Beasley, an interview with the composer David Mansfield, and a visual essay on the film's production by Ian Mantgini called Mystery of Faith, the Flawed Hero of the Apostle. There's also a featurette on here called The Journey of the Apostle, which I believe is an archive featurette. There's also a vintage featurette called MCA Records Soundtrack Presentation, including interviews with Robert Duvall and Stephen Curtis Chapman, plus a music video that was created for the film as well, for the song I Will Not Go Quietly. The set also includes a theatrical trailer. Transfer-wise though, this looks really great. There's really great grain management on here. The transfer is crisp and clear, and probably a highlight when it comes to this particular wave of the Imprint range. Coming in at number 33 is 5, released in 1951. This is another science fiction cult classic that's been released under the Imprint range. This is one I'd never really heard of before, but it is a B movie, so I think it is one that's definitely earned a cult status as opposed to a classic status. This focuses on a world which has been destroyed by a nuclear bomb, and there are 5 remaining humans which somehow manage to cross paths. All of them are from different walks of life, and all of them have a different vision for the future and how to restart humanity. I thought it was quite a fascinating film, but I didn't love it. I think the B-movie nature for me kind of, I do appreciate these B films, but for me it was just something I didn't really connect with. I felt like the themes that it was going for weren't explored as well as it could have, but then I also feel like at times it did tend to get a little bit too serious for its own good. So I did have a few issues with it, but other than that, it is quite a quirky little film that I did enjoy watching, but it's not something that I just absolutely loved. Again, as far as special features go, this is another one that is very, very slim. It has an audio commentary by film historians Glenn Erickson and Matthew Rovner, which really takes a nice look into the themes that are presented in the film and kind of a little bit about the production and the history of the movie as well. It's also got an interview with film historian Kim Newman on Arch Oboler, which was recorded in 2020. Oboler was, of course, the producer, writer, and director of the film. A quite insightful little interview with Kim Newman right there. It also has a theatrical trailer. As far as the transfer goes on this one, it's really nice for the kind of film it is. It's really nice. It's got really nice grain management in most of it. I feel like there was a little bit of DNR in some instances, in some scenes, but mostly the grain is really fine and really filmic. It's very crisp and clear throughout the entire film. There's a lot of print damage to this, so there's specks and scratches and dust and all that left on. As far as a film like this goes, where it's a B movie, I feel like that just kind of adds to the presentation of it, and I always feel like if you take that kind of stuff out of a movie like this, it loses a little bit of that, a little bit of its charm. It loses a little bit of what makes it inherently, you know, a B movie, a cult classic. So I always like to see them leave those kind of imperfections in on a film like this. It really adds just a real kind of nice vibe, a real nice feel to it. And last but not least, at number 34 is Black Sunday, released in 1977. This one stars Robert Shaw, Bruce Dern, Martha Keller. I loved this movie. This is so good. This is like a red-hot, boiling political thriller. I feel like it's quite a long movie. Again, this is one that goes for about 2.5 hours. The first, like, maybe hour or so of the movie is a bit of a slog. It's very political, and it's very dramatic and very serious. But once you get into, like, the thriller part of the movie, it is just so incredibly boiling with suspense and thrills that it doesn't let you go for the last hour and a half. And I would say it's probably some of the best suspense thrills from this era of filmmaking I've ever seen. It's based on this group of Black September terrorists who hijack the Goodyear blimp during the Super Bowl Sunday match, and they want to blow up this blimp over the audience of thousands of people. There's a good selection of special features on here, all of which are new and exclusive to this set and were produced last year. There's an audio commentary by film historian Imprint, which is quite interesting. There's an interview with film music historian Daniel Schweiger about the John Williams score, really terrific John Williams score in this film, one of his earliest ones, and a featurette with film historian Stephen Armstrong about John Frankenheimer, who is of course the director of the film, which is a very insightful little featurette as well. And there's a theatrical trailer included there too. Overall, this is a very impressive wave from Viavision's Imprint label. It's not my favourite wave so far, but there are a couple of films in here that I absolutely loved, and I'm really looking forward to Wave 6, which was supposed to come out this month, but it has been delayed until next month. So when I do get my hands on those ones, I will of course be reviewing those as well. Thanks to my amazing friends over at Viavision who sent in these for the purposes of this review, and as I said, I will be reviewing the next wave as soon as they come out too. Thanks everybody out there for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. Hey everyone, if you haven't yet, smash that big old subscribe button up on your screen to keep up to date with all my content, and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early access content, and to get your name up on the screen. Thanks again for watching.